Welcome to the special edition of WCMO NewsCenter 15. Today we will meet the candidates who are contested and uncontested running in this year's 2023 Marietta City election. Now, here are discussions with a few of our candidates.
Welcome to WCMO. We're here today with mayoral incumbent Joshua Schlicher. To just start with an icebreaker, if you could just give a brief introduction or summary on yourself, what do you think is the most important for the viewers to know about you as a candidate?
Well, I've been with the city now for over 10 years with my combined council experience and as mayor. So, yeah, when I came into the mayor's office, that 6 years as president of council and prior experience on council was a very big advantage because I knew exactly how the city worked and operated and behind the scenes and everything. So it's been a good decade of experience with the city.
That's awesome. As an incumbent, what is the primary reason you've decided to run for mayor again?
Well, we're in the midst of a lot of different projects. Yeah, when I came in 4 years ago, we started tackling a lot of projects that hadn't been done in a long time, park projects and just restructuring the city, departments and the mayor's office and updating everything from the 1980s, it seemed like. So we have a lot of projects that are now starting. One is the water treatment plant project, which is our largest capital project the city's ever taken on, about a $40 million project. So I want to be involved in seeing that completed, and that'll be a 2.5-year project. So it's just now starting. So I would like to continue working for the city. I've enjoyed it so far. I've had a lot of good support with the community and even abroad over the state and everywhere. I'm the treasurer of the Ohio Mayors Association, so I'm getting around throughout the state and representing Marietta well.
All right, and you already answered this a little bit, but could you explain your background a bit? How did you get into politics, and what are some of your highlights from your last term?
Okay, sure. Yeah, I came from a 23-year career in the construction business, and so I ran for council, was elected to president of the city council, and I was in council for 3 terms as president, and then ran for mayor, and this is my first term as mayor. But some of the highlights, again, just things that hadn't been done in a long time, decades really. I was able to hire the first HR director the city's ever had.
Oh.
We consolidated departments and formed the Marietta Public Works Department for the first time. We looked at ways to save money with the city. We had an aging fleet of vehicles and equipment. We were able to take all those and reconfigure that process, and we started leasing vehicles and turning over vehicles quicker. And actually, that's been a gain in equity for the city. We eliminated some positions through attrition, reprogrammed some things. And just a lot of maintenance projects and a lot of projects that really hadn't been done before, such as the water treatment plant. This will be the big highlight of my last 4 years, but yeah, definitely a lot of changes.
All right, and what is something that you've achieved or you've been working on from your last term that you're hoping to continue if you're reelected?
Well, there's a lot of things that we started in 2020 that we wanted to see happen pretty quickly, but of course with COVID and some other things, we had to step back on some things. There's still a lot of road projects that we wanted to tackle. We're actually behind on where we wanted to be. We've increased our routine maintenance quite a bit over the last 4 years, but as far as our are bringing up our level of performance and replacement on some of our pavement we're behind. So I want to see that definitely grow in the next 4 years. Not just pavement, but brick street maintenance, alley replacements, parking lots. There's a lot of things that we still need to do that definitely need done.
And is there anything that you're hoping not to continue in your next term?
Well, when we started in 2020, I came up with a program that we would go into the neighborhoods. We called it all-out rollout, where we go in and target maintenance issues of the city. We have kind of rescaled that a little bit and made some improvements. We want to continue that. We don't want to discontinue it, but we want to make improvements and better deliver services to the city. That's been a 4-year process of trying to get it right. It took all the departments working together, and they had never done that before. So it was a really new program for the city. The community liked it, but just trying to get everything to work very smooth has been a challenge, but we're still working on it.
Yeah, of course. And is there anything new you're hoping to achieve if you get reelected?
Well, like I said, a lot of road projects. We're working right now on redesigning and we hope with the help of the governor's Appalachian money to reconfigure the Ohio River levee and all of our river banks. We have a park project now in East Muskegon Park we're going to try to wrap up in the next year or two. Then we have a lot of improvements downtown we want to make. Right now we're doing about $1 million traffic light reconfigure, so that's going to improve some things downtown and Route 7 and Green Street. That's going to continue. A lot of the park projects we've been able to tackle, but there's still a lot more to do there. Funding is always an issue, so we're going after a lot of grant money. That kind of comes and goes. There's really no set schedule for those type of things. It's just when we can get them and what we can get. But a lot of times we have to have match money for those as well. But yeah, just a lot of maintenance projects continuing, and downtown revitalization. That's going to be a big focus in the next 4 years with the governor's Appalachian redevelopment grant money. We're also we're working with Marietta College and the county on developing downtown parking. So we're working on a $25 million grant with the RAISE grant. That'll include 2 new parking garages for improved downtown parking. But yeah, there's a whole lot of things going on.
And we've talked a lot about what you'd be planning on addressing if you're reelected, but if you had to choose just one issue, what would you be most passionate about addressing if you're reelected?
That's tough. Yeah, because I'm really trying to focus on what the community wants and what I get feedback from. Probably the biggest that we need to focus on is road work and accessibility, more sidewalk work. So infrastructure-wise, we're in pretty good shape. We do water line replacements and sewer as needed. Those projects are so expensive, you just can't go, tearing up all the neighborhoods and putting new water lines in, but we do those as needed. But really road work and sidewalks and access points are going to be a big focus.
All right, and considering the variety of needs in our community, how do you work to maintain a relationship with your constituents?
Well, social media is good. I really have a lot of interaction with people just stopping in the office, and they send emails and phone calls. I like to have an open door where if someone wants to come in and talk, they can do that. I take phone calls. We don't really. I don't have a gatekeeper as far as phone calls and the office door. So really, yeah, open door. Phone calls. I take phone calls in the evenings, email, social media. Yeah, just everything combined is a good way to stay in touch with everyone. Attending the meetings, council meetings. I get stopped on the street usually. That's one thing. After you're in office for a while, you get recognized, and people come up to you on the street and suggest things and ask for things, and we do our best to deliver. But there's always problems with either funding or things we can't do. But we definitely take everyone's feedback, and we want to deliver as best we can to what they want.
And what's your perspective on how to balance and address that variety of needs in the community?
Well, a lot of it has to do with funding. Like I said, there's things that there's low-lying fruit where you can go in and do things. That's what our all-out rollout program was trying to do, is do the stuff that we do normally on a day-to-day basis, focus it on specific neighborhoods and in a timely manner, and work as a team. But yeah, a lot of it is really funding hurdles, and then there's just things that take a lot of time to do. You know, either you have to go through legislation with city council, or you have to get approvals to do things. We're working right now on a economic revitalization program in Marietta. We're tackling blight and tearing down houses and buildings that are vacant and burned out and whatever it might be. So there's just a lot of that we'd love to do, but you got to time it and you got to space it out depending on the funding stream.
And recognizing the role of mayor to both oversee and work alongside the council and other elected officials, do you have any thoughts on the collaborative process of your role as mayor?
Well, with my experience on council, I always had good relationships with the administrations when I was working with council. You have to maintain that. If you have a council and an administration that doesn't work well, or you know, don't agree on anything, and they're always fighting, there's a stalemate with legislation and activity in the city. There's some things that by law have to be passed, so those kind of continue, but there's a lot of programs that I brought to council that they've been supportive of and we've been able to implement. If I had a council that was against me or what we wanted to do for whatever reason, it would be a very hard term to get through. And I've been fortunate. We've had a great council to work with, and I've really worked with councils over the years that have been really great and supportive. And you have to maintain that. And I work well with both parties. Party lines is not a problem. Work with the community at large, treat everyone fair, consistent. That's always a big part of what I try to do. There's some neighborhoods that need more work than others, so we try to balance those things out. But yeah, you have to have, and even with the county commissioners, I've got a good relationship, other county officials, state officials. You have to have that in order to get things done. You can't have, animosity and problems, and it'll just tie up things, and yeah, you never get anything done.
So considering that, how would you approach a situation in which the council or an individual elected official disagrees with your plans or ideas?
Well, usually try to sit them down and say, here's what's best, or here's where we want to go. And there's times where they've changed their mind. There's times where they've stuck to their beliefs or their own goals or whatever. But most of the time we've been able to say, here's what's best for the community, and that usually sells it. And really, I can't think of anything that's really been a big holdup in the last 4 years. I haven't had a majority vote on some things, but most everything we've done has been pretty positive. I have vetoed a few things that council has passed, having to do with employee issues. But other than that, yeah, it's been pretty successful.
All right, and to close, what is one message you'd like to give to the community of Marietta?
Well, I've enjoyed the last 4 years working for you as your mayor. I'd like to continue the next 4 years. We have a lot of projects that I still want to see get finished up, and it's just been a great time. We've there's been some struggles, of course, but overall it's been a real positive experience. Just really enjoyed working with everybody, from not only our city departments, but everyone at large and throughout the city, and our constituents and everyone. Visitors to Marietta, we've seen quite a few, and always enjoy welcoming them. But yeah, I'd like to continue the momentum that we've started, and want to continue the projects that we've started also.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. We've enjoyed having you on
Thank
WCMO.
you. Thank you, my pleasure.
Of course. I'm Johannah James. I'm here with Ann Labes, a candidate in the mayoral race for this November's upcoming election. Hi, Ann. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, just to start, if you could give a brief introduction or summary of yourself, what do you think is most important for the constituents to know about you as a candidate?
So, I'm Ann Labes. I was born Ann O'Brien right here in Marietta, Ohio. I graduated from Marietta High School in 2009, and then I attended the University of Pittsburgh for undergrad and law school. Worked for a couple years as a lawyer before coming back home. And I'm an attorney and a small business owner. This is my first foray into politics.
All right, beautiful. Could you explain your background a bit? How did you get into politics, and what have some of your highlights been leading up to this?
Sure. Well, I've always been political, so to speak. I've always been somebody who has an opinion. I'm a lawyer, so we like to hear ourselves talk, allegedly. But having an opinion and being informed has always been very important to me. As soon as I could vote, I registered to vote, and I was voting. So I've never really felt comfortable placing myself in either camp of the two big parties. I have a little bit of an ideological block there with just assigning myself to one side or the other and checking all the boxes. So I am an independent with progressive values.
All right, and if you had to choose one achievement to this point, what do you think is the achievement you're proudest of leading into politics?
Well, leading into politics, so separating, kind of the professional side of my life, I did win a jury verdict in 2021 in federal district court. It was my first jury trial in federal court, and it was nice to have the jury there and to get a verdict. And it was a Fourth Amendment case, so I was representing a citizen who had had their Fourth Amendment violated by the government. So some people, see my history as somebody who stands up for civil rights and who pursues those kind of cases, and they question, why does she want to be involved in the government? My answer to that is, I am exactly the type of person who should want to be involved in the government. I'm here to represent the citizen and the taxpayer, not the politician.
All right, you've kind of already gotten into it, but what is the primary reason you've decided to run for mayor?
So the primary reason is because eventually you have to stop complaining about something that other people are doing, and you have to step up and do it yourself. So I got to that point within the past couple of years, and there were some issues that the city faced, some particular scandals, and I was not pleased, to put it lightly, about how the current administration handled those, and I felt that somebody else needed to step up and do it, and eventually it just had to be me.
All right, and could you discuss what you hope to achieve while you're in office?
Sure. So one of the main things that I want to focus on is government transparency. Right now, when you ask the city for public records, it's almost like you're asking for the nuclear codes. It doesn't need to be that way. We need a designated public records custodian, and we need more information available online. This is 2023. Okay, you should be able to go online and you should be able to see the city's financials. You should be able to see the status of your complaint. Let's say that you're mad about a pothole that's outside of your house and it's dangerous, and it's messing up cars, and you've called the city 5-6 times. This is the kind of stuff that I'm hearing from constituents when I go door to door. They want to know where that complaint is going. And if you have an online system where folks can log in with a control number and they can see, oh, this is the department that my complaint has been directed to. This is the priority it's been given. It helps the citizen feel like they're being heard, and it also helps for accountability on behalf of the city. So that's something that I want to encourage. Also, I think that we need to market ourselves, people my age and younger. Our population is falling, and it's becoming, I don't want to fearmonger, but it's becoming an emergency. If we don't do something about our population numbers, we're not going to recognize this place in 10 years. But in order to do that, we have to encourage young families to want to set up camp here, to open businesses, to stay here if they're from here. So the way that we do that is by presenting ourselves in the best possible way, being a good ambassador. When I talk to Athens Mayor Steve Patterson, he says the mayor's job is about being an ambassador. How do you present yourselves? We want to present ourselves as progressive, open, welcoming to everybody, because that's how we get younger people to want to stay here.
And out of all of that, if you had to pick just one issue, what would you be most passionate about addressing as mayor?
One issue that I'm most passionate about. It's kind of an overarching theme, but, and I don't know if anybody else in the studio is from here except for me today, but there's kind of this pervasive theory in Marietta that there's one set of rules for one type of citizen, and then there's the rest of us. It's who you know. Are you in the club? It's good old boys club. I'm not in the good old boys club. There are things about me that are going to preclude my entry into the good old boys club from now to the end of time. I'm not trying to be in the good old boys club. If there's one thing that I care about the most, it's that making sure every citizen, whether or not they feel like they're invisible or they're not being heard, every citizen knows that they are equal.
And considering the variety of needs in our community, how would you intend to maintain a relationship with your constituents?
So leaving the door open, making sure that if they call, they get a response. And again, this goes back to the complaint tracking system. If somebody wants to talk to me, they need to be able to talk to me. I'm open to that. I put my phone number on all my campaign materials for a reason. I want to hear from folks. I want to know what's affecting you if you live in the West Side or, way up in the First Ward, places where I don't normally get to on my day-to-day life. I want to hear about this. So I think that really fostering that communication and making yourself open and making yourself accessible and just meeting people with kindness. When people call the city, sometimes they're not having the best day. Something's gone wrong and they're upset. They want to be met with compassion, kindness, and understanding. And even if we don't see eye to eye, I want them to know that they're heard.
And what's your perspective on how to balance and address that variety of needs in our community?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure if I understand it.
So considering that there's such a variety of needs in the community, how do you
Sure.
intend to balance all of those needs, all of the different needs?
Well, I think it starts with picking good people. So the mayor is in charge of a lot of different appointments and making sure that those appointments are the right person for the job. Not just somebody that you owe a favor to, not somebody who helped you in your campaign, but the person who you can place them in that position if they're in a public-facing position, that they're right to deal with the public. They're somebody who's compassionate. And I think that placing the right staff and making sure that everybody has the same core values of compassion, understanding, and making sure that even, those unheard citizens are felt as equal as everybody else. I think that's what's most important.
All right, in recognizing the role of mayor to both oversee and work alongside the council members and other elected officials, do you have any thoughts on the collaborative process of the role?
Sure. So we do have a council mayor system in town. So if you want to, make certain expenditures or pass certain laws, you do have to have approval from both. One thing that I am passionate about is transparency. Now, when legislation comes through, I think the numbers right now are close to 90% of it is passed on an emergency. What does that mean? It means that there are no public readings. They suspend the public readings. You don't know what the law is until it gets uploaded maybe a half year or a year later into the online database. That's not transparency, to my opinion. 90% of our laws being passed aren't emergencies. What's a real emergency? So I've had a lot of discussions with current council members and folks who are running for council this time around about the need for more public transparency. The public needs to be involved. The speaking time at council meetings needs to be longer. And again, this isn't something that I deal with as the mayor. This is more of council's issue. But something that I'm passionate about is if I don't like the piece of legislation on my desk, I will veto it. I'm not afraid to use the veto power, and I believe that my opponent has been a bit reluctant to veto and has been more of let's just get stuff through. No, if I don't feel like it's serving the public, if I think that there needs to be public readings, I'm not going to sign it, and I'm not afraid to do that.
All right, and how would you approach a situation in which the council or an individual elected official disagrees with your plans or ideas? How would you work through that?
That's okay. And it's actually encouraged. That's how you get to a better solution. If you have two people with differing backgrounds and differing viewpoints, and this goes back to diversity and inclusion, right? We don't have a diversity and inclusion statement in the city of Marietta. We should, but folks who come from different backgrounds, the more diverse you can get, the better the end result will be. That's something that's been proven in the corporate world and everywhere else. People are going to come from different walks of life. My experience is not going to be the same as yours. It's not going to be the same as somebody who disagrees with me. But it's sitting down and finding the common value. What do we really care about? What are our values? What are the citizens' needs? And how do we advance the citizens' needs? Because that's first and foremost. It's not making friends with politicians or being afraid to make somebody mad. It's what does the citizen need? and that needs to be the number one priority.
All right, beautiful. And to close, what is one message you'd like to give to the community of Marietta?
I'd like to say, come out and vote in November. I know it's not as exciting sometimes as voting every 4 years for president, but the voting booth is the one place where the least powerful citizen and the most powerful citizen are equal. And when we talk about municipal elections, these are the folks who are really going to affect your day-to-day life.
So well said. All right, thank you so much for joining us on WCMO. We are so happy to have you. This is candidate Ann Labes for mayor, and we hope that you tuned in. Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome back to WCMO, everybody. My name is Salanitro, and joining me is electoral candidate for auditor, Alison Arocho. So, Alison, if you could start off, let's give a brief introduction of yourself. A brief introduction of yourself.
A brief introduction of myself. Okay, so I am a resident of Marietta in the city since 2017. I'm from Athens originally. We settled here because houses were cheap compared to the college town of Athens. I have a 7-year-old, which is one of the reasons why I decided to run for city auditor. There are so many things around the city that have, the parks are an issue, school, there's some situations with the elementary schools that are not up to par, or my standards anyway. So there's just quite a bit of things around that needs somebody to take a fresh look at, I think, is how I would describe it. And that's me.
So if you could, what would you think is the most important thing within your candidacy and what you're running for that you want your viewers to know is on your radar?
So there's a lot of things on my radar. I think that there are some inconsistencies with the way that the local government is running right now. I think that they need to be held accountable for some of the things. They are not providing enough transparency, integrity. I mean, there's quite a bit of things that is going on with the city auditor specifically. And for instance, there was a report that came out recently that had about $500,000 penciled in at the end of the cash report in a month, and there was no source listed with it. So that makes me question where this money is coming from, where this money is going, and I can't seem to get to the bottom of it. So that.
Understandable.
That's important. I feel like there is not enough information provided for the public. I also believe that the information that is provided for the public is incomplete and confusing, and I feel like we all need a little bit more simplicity with the records and everything going on online.
That is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in regards to your background a bit, if you could just maybe explain to your viewers what has prepared you in the past to become an auditor for the city.
So, I have an associate's degree in business management. I like numbers. I am very well organized, and I've done a lot of work with Excel sheets, which is pretty important because, I mean, the basics of city auditor is bookkeeping, to be honest. So my background, that's really all I have is the business degree and the motivation and, commitment to the public. I think that my opponent, she doesn't even have that, I don't think. So I don't feel like there is a huge comparison on my qualifications against her qualifications. I feel like we just need to bring in, some younger people to help fix what has gone wrong. And my background is mostly because I'm dedicated, and then the business degree is a plus, and other little things along the way.
Gotcha. So how would you say you describe your approach to minimizing and avoiding errors within our current auditing and budgeting processes?
I wouldn't be penciling things in for one. I would definitely give better descriptions, clarify on where that money is coming from and where that money is going. And honestly, Excel does it for you. There's really no reason that it would be penciled in and then just submitted. Because if you entered it in on a computer, hit a couple things, it would come up. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. So, in also regards to budgeting as well, you know that Marietta, as a community, we have a variety of financial needs and concerns.
Yes.
So what would your perspective be on making sure all of these are heard and addressed appropriately?
Well, I would have to get in there and I would have to look at the books because I feel like there is not enough transparency for me as just a community member to see where all that is coming from and going. I do know on the legal side that there is specific grants and stuff for specific things, but because they're not communicating that with the public properly, I'm still kind of unable to find all of that stuff. So, I mean, I would have to start there. I would have to just, step in ready to go because it's going to be, I'm afraid it's going to be a lot of work at the beginning. But my goal of making sure I want to know what grants are available and what for, take those grants and put it for what it's for. Taking a deeper look at other things like where money is coming from and where money is going, and then track it better. If I know where it's coming from and I know where we're going to send it to, it's just as easy to do that and add it all up. So, I mean, I would have to just do the research and get it in front of me, but my goal is to make it easier to understand, make it readily available to the public, so that everybody knows where it's coming from and going. I think that's what my goal is for the cash coming in and out.
That is understandable. As we wrap it up here for this interview, just one final message you'd like to give to the community of Marietta.
One final message. Vote for me. No, I am just, a normal everyday person. I have tattoos, I have piercings, I am not a person to sugarcoat things. I prefer everything be put out there, whether you like it or not. I will take responsibility if I mess up. I think that if they vote for me, if you guys vote for me, that we can work together and we can make this community better and we can put the money where it needs to be.
Sounds good. Well, you guys make sure you head out and vote on Election Day, and we will be back with more news later on.
All right. Welcome back to WCMO. Joining me here is Russ Garrison, running for Marietta City Schools Board of Education. So, Russ, starting with an introduction, could you just give me a brief summary? What is most important for your viewers to know about you as a candidate?
Well, I think part of what I'm bringing is some experience on the board. I've been on this will be my third term, so I've been on the board for 8 years now. And I think one of the key things that I learned early on is that school is a lot more complex than we realized coming in from our experience going through school. Running a school and operating a school is much different than attending school or sitting in a classroom. And so some of the continuity and experience I think is important. The other aspect is that we're just finishing up a strategic plan and implementing the actions on it that I think are really key in moving forward and doing a much better job of getting all of our students proficient as they come out of school and ready for life.
Okay. So as an incumbent, what is the primary reason that you have decided to run for the Board of Education again?
It ties back to the strategic plan. I was on the verge of deciding 8 years was enough, but with the strategic plan that we worked on, the actions laid forward, I think it's really important that we have the continuity to move that forward and keep it moving and make the progress that we have teed up. One of the things that I recognized early on that, it took me a couple of years to get my feet under me and start understanding school and that, and the 3 board members that are remaining have been on the board for only 2 years. And so you need the continuity to keep everything moving and not start over again every 2 or 4 years.
Absolutely. So, can you explain your background a little bit? Like, how did you get into education, and what are some of your highlights over your last term? My background is trained as an engineer, worked in plastics manufacturing, polymer manufacturing for 35 years before I retired. 8 years ago, there was a board member that we thought was going to run again and decided not to at the last minute, and so I ended up running as a write-in candidate and getting involved. Education has always been important to me in terms of what I think is the potential for success in life and to move forward, and really what creates opportunities. And so it was really just the chance asking of, hey, we're going to have an opening, we're willing to step in and do that, and then getting enthralled with the process and learning over the last 8 years is that it really has been a learning experience. And moving forward, it's really the key accomplishments. I think we had some failures with trying to build new schools that I think was really a missed opportunity for the community, because we were at the lowest point of interest rates, and that it was going to be hard to build what we need in the future anywhere close to the same costs as we had at that point in time. But over the last couple of adoptions of curriculum, we've really focused more on really getting a high quality curriculum and finding the instructional practices that really have the potential of getting all of our students proficient, not just a portion of them proficient. So, what achievement are you proudest of from your last term?
I think it's the curriculum aspect of that, especially this last adoption on literacy, of the work that went in with the teachers and the community to understand the science of reading and what was going to be necessary for all the students to be successful, and then identifying and finding the curriculums and the trainings to go along with it to get that in place and get that started this year. And actually got some of it started even before we adopted the curriculum.
Okay. So what is something that you've achieved or you've been working on over your last term on the Board of Education that you are hoping to continue if you're reelected?
I think the key aspect is that the focus on learning with the adults. Most of the students are coming in and they're sponges looking for the reinforcement and passion and energy that we can give them. And I think our success is really going to be focused on how do we get all of the adults to approach learning what we have to do differently, what we have to learn differently, how we have to approach school and the students differently. The vision that came out of the strategic planning of every student every day, I think, is part of what I've been focused on the last couple of years, and had a role in getting that focus on the students as part of that strategic plan. But I think that is the key thing going forward, as well as what we've worked on the last couple of years. We have to make sure that every student, when they show up every day, is getting the attention and passion and skills built into them so that they can thrive and learn.
Okay, so is there anything that you don't wish to continue?
I think the key aspect from the board over the last couple of years is working at how do we stay consistent and and are cohesive in our leadership. And we've started that with the strategic plan, and it's moving in that direction. I think that just has to continue to be the focus, that as a board we set a clear, consistent direction and drive the accountability through the district, that everybody is focused on every student every day.
Mm-hmm. So could you discuss if there's anything new that you would hope to achieve while you are in office?
I think it's starting to sound like a little bit of a broken record with where we're going. I think the new part is really getting every classroom focused at all of the students. As we, in our past curriculums and approaches, we are getting somewhere around 40-50% proficient, and there is an acceptance of that because of some of the poverty rates in the district. That's kind of how it is, and I think that what I'm looking to change and see that we stop that look of that's how it is, because of the poverty in the area, and recognize that the curriculum approaches that we are choosing and the instructional practices that we're choosing have the potential of being successful for all of the students, and that we really have to go into the classroom every day and in all of our extracurricular activities and everything with the view of everybody can thrive, and our job is to make sure that every student thrives every day.
Mm-hmm. So how do you intend to reach these goals?
We're putting in a system of measurement and accountability around the action plans in the action items in the strategic plan. I think it's really that month-to-month measurement and accountability of, are we moving towards the actions we have defined, then going back and, did those actions give us the results that we're looking for, and continue that cycle of doubling back, making sure that they're working, accountability to make sure that what we had defined actually gets done and implemented, and then just continue to repeat that process back and forth of, is it working, and what's next? Are we doing what's next, and then did it work? Mm-hmm. And keep moving through that cycle.
Okay, so if you had to pick just one issue, what are you most passionate about addressing if you are reelected as a member of the Board of Education?
For me, our strategic plan has lots of different areas, but the one that I am most passionate about is the academic success. Where we have a school not for the buildings, not for the extracurriculars and everything else. It is based on that education. And for me, the goal of making sure that at least 95% of the kids are proficient and successful across all of our testing. And while the state testing is a poor substitute for measuring proficiency adequately, because really it is proficiency to go out and be successful in life, it is about the only one that we have that we use consistently and the public sees. And for me, it is that focus on the academics, focusing on being consistent classroom to classroom in terms of what we're delivering, so that it doesn't matter which teacher you have, you're going to get the same opportunities for success. Mm-hmm. And that we really drive that academic performance.
Okay, so how would you plan to address this issue?
We've laid out the key aspect. Now it's just the hard work of measuring how we're doing in each classroom. Are we following the curriculum? Are we learning how to follow the instructional practices that have been outlined? Asking where we haven't, what help's needed to move farther up the learning curve with the adults of how do we teach better, how do we connect better, how do we support better, and the same way we're asking the teachers to do those things with the students. I think from a board standpoint, it is asking those questions of, okay, the assessment for the teacher of how you're doing with instructional practices shows that there's a weakness. What do we need to do to address that? What help does the teacher need? What additional professional development is needed? What supports are needed to be able to for the adults to move up the learning curve so that the students move up the learning curve.
Mm-hmm. So considering the variety of needs in our community, how do you work to maintain a relationship with your constituents? Is there anything that you might change about this approach if you're reelected?
No, I think the key approach is making sure that we're understanding school and that we listen when there are concerns. But it's the complexity of the requirements from the state government and from the federal government about what we're doing, and then the policies that we have to have in place make it a very complex process. I think the key aspect of connection is if we're successful in connecting with every student every day, the connection with the community is going to be there. You know, what parents are worried about is when the kid comes home and they're disconnected and they're unhappy and school was a bore for the day. And and what you really want is that kid to come home and say, look what we did today. Look what I learned today. Let me tell you about what I learned. Let me show you what I learned. And if we are successful in driving that, our connection to the community, I think it's going to be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So what is your perspective on how to balance and address the variety of needs in the community? How do you approach the challenges of representing all the voices of Marietta?
Well, I think from the Board of Education, the challenge is, from an education standpoint, is pretty simple. You want the students to be successful. You want them to be excited about what they're learning and growing, and we can do that. From a community standpoint, is really, nobody likes taxes. And so the struggle within Ohio of how we've chosen to fund schools relies heavily on local property taxes, and if you're going to make a change, of convincing the community to give you more funding, whether that's for new buildings or significant improvements for buildings, or whether that's just with the funding of the schools. We've had a significant advantage in the last couple of years following the very severe impact of COVID. The federal funding that has come through has put the district in a much better financial situation. And so that has alleviated some of our operating issues of having to go into the community. It really is the balance between how do we successfully educate and what are we asking for the community to do from a financial standpoint. And for me, I think that the promise there is, if we are successful in focusing on every student every day and the instructional practices that actually have us being successful with every student every day, the enthusiasm we can create in the community will help us deal with the financial asks that we have to make in balancing everybody's concern. I think, there's always going to be a portion of the community that the answer is I'm not going to vote for any tax at all. But I think a significant majority of the community, if we can come out and show our success in meeting the needs of every student every day, are going to be much more enthusiastic about helping the schools.
Mm-hmm. So recognizing that there will be a variety of interests and opinions on the Board of Education, what is your approach to collaborate with others when you disagree on an issue?
I think it is the fun of having energetic and challenging conversations. That you have to be willing to listen, and you have to be willing to talk about what your views are and the controversy you create with how you're choosing to push. The difficulty on a school board in Ohio is that, other than a few specific personnel related issues and and some dealing with purchases of property and things like that, all of the discussions have to be in front of the public. So if somebody wants to come and watch us hash out issues, they can come and watch us hash out issues. Other than the few exceptions around when, if we're dealing with a disciplinary issue or a contract issue, we don't, you don't take people apart in public. You don't take employees apart in public. Those are part of what you can do in executive sessions, where we can have those difficult conversations. It's really the skill of learning how to have those conversations in front of a broad audience is why it makes it difficult. And you just, you work at remaining polite and specific about what you're looking for and why you think the approach you're advocating for is important.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have any thoughts on the process of balancing and representing the needs of your constituents with this variety of interests on the Board of Education?
I think the key on the board is to get to a common objective. The part of the strategic planning process we went through was the board sitting down and talking about what's important to us, where do we want to go, was consistent between the board's conversations and the broader conversations we had within the community and within the staff that lined up with that pretty good. And the mission that deals with a collaborative approach that gives every student the opportunities for success. It's really bringing it back to that. It's easy to get diverted on the board into, what color paint should we have, or what facilities should we pay attention to, or how do the finances look, because those are some of the easier things to come in from the outside and see. It's easy to look at the balance sheet and say, how do the finances look like? It's easy to walk around the buildings and say, I think we ought to do something to the building. It's much harder to understand this is what we have to do for that student to be successful. And so the different interests in the community, different interests on the board, for me, it really comes back to pulling the conversations back to that focus. We're talking about different things. Which of these will get us the most progress for every student every day? And do that. And it's that challenge because it's easy to get diverted into other parts of the conversations or other specific issues, or somebody having a pet peeve about what's going on. It's really bringing it back to what's important to the students. What's the best answer here with the flexibility we have, so that we can be successful with every student every day. Right.
So, to close, what is one message that you would like to give the community of Marietta? Going into the year, we'll have a little bit of work with bringing in one new board member. 4 of us will be consistent coming out of the efforts with the strategic plan that really lets us focus on that. The effort's going to be, building the collaborative approach within the classroom so that every day, every student gets the energy and attention they need to be successful. All right, well, thank you, Russ, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in to Meet the Candidates on WCMO NewsCenter 15. After the break, we will continue our discussions with candidates.
We've always had villains to face.
Bad guys to take down. But you
are the most horrible of all.
We're not here because we have to be.
We are here because we've had enough of you.
Every single one of us is mortal.
But inside of us,
we are all heroes.
So stand up with us.
Stand up to fight.
Stand up to cancer.
Visit standuptocancer.org to learn more.
Listen up, people. Going extinct is a bad thing. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster. And yet every year, governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes.
Dan Hicks with Paul Azinger, welcoming you back to the Healthy Stand Classic.
You couldn't ask for better conditions. 68 degrees and a UV index of 3.
This direct exposure to midday sun could be increasing her risk to melanoma.
It looks like she's making a change.
Now let's see what she takes out.
Oh, wow, it looks like she's pulling out a 15.
I don't know, it looks like she's going with a 30.
Strong choice.
Incredible.
Stand Up to Cancer and Optum want to help you reduce your risk for cancer. Visit takeahealthystand.org.
Welcome to WCMO TV. I'm Addison Painter, and joining me today is David Grande, who's running for President of Council. David, if you could just give us a quick introduction, what do you think is most important for the viewers to know about you?
Well, let me talk about some of my credentials, all right? Or lack of, as my opponent says. I am not a lawyer, and I've been said that I need to be a lawyer. It's not the case. We've just had 16 lawyers out of the last 20 years, so people think that we need a lawyer. The only legal position we have is the city law director. It's not my first roadshow. I've been president of the Tourist Bureau Board. In Pittsburgh, when we were living there, I was the president of a nonprofit for 8 years. I was the parliamentarian of another profit for 6 years, and I taught a course for 5 years at Robert Morris University called Media Management that all the seniors had to take. And basically it was how to run a radio station, a TV station, or a newspaper. 3 weeks of that class was dedicated to Robert's Rules of Order and running a business meeting. So the other aspect that I'm saying is that I've never been on council. Neither had my opponent before she was elected. I have, as a reporter, 25 years experience, 12 of them covering council. I have covered nearly 300 city council meetings, so I kind of have a feel how they run.
So could you talk a little bit more about your background, maybe specifically in politics? What's getting you into politics?
The lack of transparency is getting me into politics. I mean, we are not really receptive to the public. We have a number of things that we're doing we don't really want to hear. And we're all out here saying, will you vote for me? Please vote for me. We're asking for a vote, but we're not asking for input. We're not asking the public to come and say, hey, tell us what you want to do. We allow 3 minutes to speak to council, all right? I've taught 19 public speaking courses at 3 different universities, all of which you had the same course, 5 minutes, right, on the persuasive speech, minimum. You give me a 3-minute speech, you failed. So what we're doing is we're setting up the public to fail immediately the minute they open their mouth, because they only get 3 minutes, and you spend the first 25 seconds telling who you are and where you live. And we just do too much of that. We do not stream anymore. We were streaming during the pandemic. As soon as the CDC sat there and said, okay, all mandates are off, we quit streaming. We don't use microphones. We used to always use microphones, so basically the council all speaks so softly that people sitting in the back cannot hear them. The legislation that we put out, there's an agenda, and it lists some of the summaries of all the legislation going to be discussed. The first reading is supposed to be the complete legislation, but it's not. Council president can choose to have it just a summary. Last council meeting, 2 of the summaries were allow for the transfer of funds. Aside from it not being a sentence, doesn't tell you anything. So these are things that need to change. Mm-hmm.
So what's the primary reason that you've decided to run to be president of council?
I started going to council meetings. I was curious about some things that were happening. What sparked me originally was the fact that we decided to lease 29 vehicles, all right? And we were going to lease these vehicles, and basically in the past, we've got about 29 to 30 vehicles. We used to take 5 or 6 a year, and we'd sell them off, we'd trade them in, and we'd get new ones. So in the course of 5 or 6 years, would have replaced everything, and then we'd go through the process again. Well, they decided to get rid of all the vehicles and lease 29 vehicles. All right, I'm not sure how much money, if that saved us anything, but what concerned me, that a vehicle that was supposed to go to a police officer who was driving a 1999 vehicle with something like 300,000 miles on it and still driving it today, that vehicle was replaced by an SUV that went to the mayor. That's what kind of prompted me. When I started seeing this, I said, there's a lot of squirrely stuff going on. And maybe when I was a newspaper reporter and I had the Marietta Leader, the weekly newspaper, my goal was the principle I was taught at Ohio University. I serve as the watchdog for the people. Now I feel I've got to get inside to be that watchdog.
So could you discuss what you would hope to achieve while you're in office?
I'd like to change the whole attitude. The president controls the council meetings. The president dictates the attitude. If you only allow people to have 3 minutes, okay, you're already telling them you don't care what they say. If you don't give them a complete report on the agenda, you know, they don't know they can go in and get the complete report from the clerk. They just come, they just come to the meeting. I want to change how the meetings proceed. I want us to be more open to the public. Seek their input and not sit there and try to do everything behind their backs.
So you've discussed a lot of different things. If you could pick one thing that you're most passionate about addressing, what would that be?
Transparency. We're hiding too much stuff. I think transparency equals democracy, and we're not really being transparent. We're trying to keep as much as we can. I mean, if you're whispering and not using microphones, nobody knows what you're saying. If you're giving them only 3 minutes, people can't really express themselves. The other thing they do that I really want to change is we have 88% of our legislation is emergency. By emergency, it means that the council member, when they go to the council member and say, what do you wish to do? They can say, I move to suspend the second and third readings, because you should have 3 readings of your legislation. They move that, they pass it, and then they come back and the councilman says, I move that we adopt the legislation. And they adopt the legislation. Last council meeting, the longest it took to read the summary, suspend the rules, and adopt the legislation was 92 seconds. And if you're a citizen, it's adopted. The next day it's signed into law. So if you were concerned about that legislation, too bad.
So considering the variety of needs in our community, how would you intend to maintain a relationship with your constituents?
By just telling that I want to be open. I mean, come and talk to us. We want to encourage you. I want to stream. I'm going back to streaming, okay? And let the people be able, if you can't get in to see us, watch us. We're on TV. This station itself used to broadcast all the council meetings in the past, That changed when the gentleman that was doing it, I believe, retired. So I need to get back to that. And it doesn't take anything today to stream, Although they tell me it takes $80,000 a year to stream 24 council meetings. That's $3,333.33 a council meeting. Somebody's getting screwed.
So what is your perspective on how to balance and address the variety of needs that the community has?
I think the balance is trying to be open to the community, trying to tell the community, we want to hear from you what we need to do and not just kind of do it behind their backs.
So how would you approach these challenges in terms of representing voices in Marietta?
Well, I think I've told you, I want to sit there and make the council meetings more productive in terms of input, give people more time to speak, change the doggone legislation so you can actually understand and read it, so it's a who, what, when, why, and where. I spent 25 years as a journalist. I think I know the who, what, when, why, and where, and that should be in the council, the summary, and it's not. Sometimes they sit there and say, allow for the construction on 7th and Putnam Street to repair bricks. That's it. Who's going to do the construction? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? How long do we think that doggone intersection might be blocked up and we can't use it? It's not in there. It's in the complete thing. If you read the complete thing, it's going to be all in there. But in the summary, it doesn't tell you any of that. So these are the things I want to change. I want to sit there and make council more responsive to the people.
So recognizing the role of the president of council to both oversee and work alongside council members, do you have any thoughts on the collaborative process?
What I'm seeing personally from attending these meetings, the collaborative process works pretty well. They are all receptive to each other. It's just that some of the stuff that's happening is coming about because of the attitude being projected. And the attitude of council and the president specifically reflects on the attitude of the city. If the council is not wanting input, if the council is being dismissive, unwelcoming, and in sometimes mean-spirited, then that reflects on the administration. That means that they're just as equal to it as the council is. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're giving your 3 minutes and you're speaking, if the TV station is not there, and I've seen this a number of times, and it comes to your 3 minutes, you're quickly told, you're done, thank you, sit down. If the TV station's there, I'm sorry, your time is up. You'll need to wrap up, please.
So what are your plans in terms of making and keeping the council organized and productive?
It's the structure and the organization of council. Everything the president does is responsible for all the legislation, keeping track of what's happening. So in terms of productiveness, we need to sit there and look at our agendas. In June, we passed an emergency manager on the 26th of June that was going to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation. It's a contract we enter into every year when the Ohio Department of Transportation's their yearly cycle ends. We have to submit in July the contract. Here's what we'll do. Here's what we'll abide by. Here's what we'll do in terms of giving you matching funds and stuff like this. It's a standard contract we do with Ohio Department of Transportation, all the state departments. Why are we making that an emergency legislation on the 26th of June when it has to be in by July 1st? Did we not do it the year before? Did we not do it the year before that? Did we not do it the last 20 years? It's something the president needs to be on top of, and that's part of the production thing. If you know what's happening and when it's coming, you don't have to do that. You know, you should have been doing that back in June.
So if the council were to hit a block in their progress due to challenges like difference of opinion, how would you go about leading the council through that?
Primarily by trying to keep the council in order. We don't really I haven't seen too many differences of opinion. The council discussions will happen in committee, and the committees are chaired by the committee chairman. Now, the president usually sits in, but the president does not run the committee. So those kind of discussions and things, you know, the president could interject if they started getting into a really heavy argument. But those discussions are not generally argumentative. They're generally among each other discussing policies and points. You know.
So just to close, what is one message that you'd like to give the community of Marietta?
Basically, transparency in government equals democracy.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you for coming in today, David. I'm Addison Painter. This has been WCMO TV.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jaelon Quiero-Gordon. Here today with me is Harley Noland, running for member of council. How you doing today, Harley?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
To start everything off, could you give us a brief summary or introductory about what do you think is most important for the viewers to know about you as a candidate?
I'm a lifelong resident of Marietta. I've served 4 terms in city council and a half of an appointed term for the Judge Boyer, who left a little bit early, but went through public schools here, went away, got an architecture degree, served in Peace Corps for 2 years, and then decided to come back because the city was getting ready for its bicentennial and there was a lot of restoration work, so I got into the restoration business. And then also opened a restaurant, and I own trolley tours, and I've had a bed and breakfast. So I've done a lot of businesses in Marietta, and I have lifelong love of Marietta.
Okay, I like that. So can you give us an explanation of your background a little bit? Why did you decide to come back to Marietta?
Marietta has lots of history. It's a safe place to live. There's wonderful outdoor recreation activities like boating. I lived on a boat for 12 years here in Marietta. And my family's here. They've been here for almost 200 years. So Marietta is just truly my home, and it offered many opportunities for me.
Okay. So how did you get into law by any chance? And then what are some of your highlights in your career?
There was a point where I felt that Marietta needed to restore some of the properties that they own, such as City Hall, their annex, the Armory, and that is my field. So I thought if I got into city government, I could help that process along. And during my time in city government, we have restored the Armory, restored the City Hall, their annex across the street. We also created a dog park, and then all those wonderful trails along the river, the mixed-use pedestrian paths along the river.
Okay, so if you're elected into council further on, what are some of your goals into further things you want to restore, or some things you want to take down?
My reason for running for one more term is that I think we need to look at the long-term financial status of the city of Marietta. The population is aging, and we, as a city, do not tax the pensions of the retired people. So we need to find more working age people to live and work in Marietta so that our expenses are always increasing just because of inflation, but our number of people that we can contribute to our city income tax is decreasing. So we need to find younger people to move to Marietta, and I think we can accomplish that because, one, it's less expensive to rent or buy real estate. Two, it's safe, a great place to raise a family. And now, in the day of internet, if you're working via your computer, you can work anywhere in the country. And we're not far from major cities. We also have an airport, so I think this is a great place for people to start their own career in their own home via the internet.
Okay, so what would you do to grab the attention of younger people? How would you present that to the younger generation?
I would form a consortium of public officials, real estate agents that have connections with their nationwide real estate agencies, and show what Marietta has to offer. It's a beautiful place. It's a safe place. You have outdoor recreational activities, boating, fishing, hiking, canoeing, kayaking, and the cost of living is less here. So it's an advertising marketing campaign, basically.
Okay. Could you discuss if there's anything new you would hope to achieve while you're in office?
I would hope that we can get Marietta on a strong financial basis for the next 20 years, because it shows that if you look at the numbers, in about 3 years, we're going to have a real crunch with city finances in relation to expenses and income. And so we've got to plan for the future of the well-being of financial status of the Marietta Treasury.
Okay, and if that's the case, how would you be able to reach that goal?
By getting more people to move to Marietta. And also, we're very fortunate that we have the large Marietta Memorial Hospital system in town with their large payroll, Marietta College with their large payroll, and People's Bank. And so we have to make sure that they are happy to have their headquarters here and keep that high base of employment, because that has taxable employment.
So if you had to pick just one issue, what are you most passionate about addressing if you are reelected as council member?
I'm most passionate about the current finances. I think we're doing well in so many areas, but we have to concentrate on the finances. We have worked very hard to find efficiencies in our city government and to watch our payroll, but there's a certain point you can't keep cutting and reducing, or you have nothing. So we need to find a way to build our tax base. And I don't mean by raising taxes, no way, but we need to find ways to get younger people who have working incomes that would be taxable.
Okay, so how would the community be able to help in regards of trying to reduce tax pays and stuff like that?
The community would say the Chamber of Commerce, our different development agencies all join in this campaign to attract people. You know, we have in the past had campaigns to attract new businesses to town, new industries. This would be a campaign to attract younger, new people to live in Marietta. And it is already happening. I can cite several people who have moved from the state of Washington. They're young. They moved here because they do not drive. So they wanted a walkable city, and Marietta is very much a walkable city. I know of another couple that just moved here from Pittsburgh because they found the cost of living was so much less, and we have good Alzheimer's care here, and the one person has that problem. And so we just need to find what is really special and attractive here in Marietta and market it to the rest of the country.
As a college student, I can definitely testify that Marietta is a very walkable city, and I love it here. So how do you approach the challenges of representing the voices of Marietta?
One, I respond to calls and make sure that their concerns are acted on quickly. If it is possible, there's some things that maybe aren't possible to do in a quick manner, but I certainly respond to those calls, and also I seek opinions and advice. Because certainly one person doesn't have all the answers, and maybe somebody has the answer or a better way to accomplish a solution. So I like to listen to people. I have listening parties around the city where people come and tell me their concerns and maybe their solutions to some problems.
Okay, that's actually good for the city, I believe. Recognizing that there will be a variety of interests and opinions of council, what is your approach to collaboration with others when you disagree on an issue?
I am a good collaborator. My skills that I learned while in the Peace Corps, I think have served me very well. I'm a good listener, and I seek common ground. I don't look for the differences. I try to find those ideas that they share in common and work from those shared interests. And if you say you're working for the overall good of the city, I think a lot of people are willing to put aside their differences and work to the common good.
So to close, what is one message you would like to give to the community of Marietta?
The one message is, I think Marietta is full of volunteers, and we need those volunteers in so many ways. If we all work together, Marietta will survive and thrive.
Thank you, everybody. Harley Noland, with him, Jaelon Quiero-Gordon.
Welcome back to WCMO TV. I'm Addison Painter, and joining me today is Cassidi Shoaf. If you could just get us started and give us a brief introduction about yourself and tell us what do you think is most important for the viewers to know about you.
I've been on council for the past 6 years. Most of that time I have juggled my host of 4 kids along with council, and my background is industrial engineering, and I think most important with me in relation to council is just my desire to maintain fiscal responsibility. That really, as the legislative body, that's our main focus, and try to make sure that we responsibly use the money that the viewers and everyone else that contributes to the city income tax provides to us, so that we are bettering the whole community.
And as an incumbent, what is the primary reason that you've decided to run for council again?
I really enjoy it. It's not without its downfalls, and it's not always enjoyable, but I think it's really honorable, and it's really a privilege to have the opportunity to make decisions, important decisions that affect the daily lives of your neighbors and your friends and your family, and somebody has to do it, and if people so choose to put me in there again, I'm happy to be that person for them.
Okay, so let's talk about some of your background a little bit more. What do you think have been some of your highlights in terms of your last term?
So when I first got started with council, we didn't have a plan. The administration at the time actively did not agree in planning more than 3 to 5 years out. So I have been pushing since being on council that we need to know where we're going. If you have no idea where you're going, you're never going to get there. So getting more turnover on council to where there have been people who have been supportive of planning has been, I think, one of my proudest things that I've been a part of with council. So last year we put money in place to look into doing a comprehensive plan, and that the Marietta Reimagined plan is in progress, and So next term, which maybe I shouldn't jump to that, but
that's okay. It's actually our next question.
Okay. So next term, I really want to focus on being able to produce a process that allows the people to hold us accountable, that outlives me, because I will not forever be on council. I can guarantee that. And I might not be on there for another month and a half even, but to try to set up something that ensures that we are holding to what the people have shared in the plan, and to hold us accountable to do that, and to be able to give status updates and let them know if, for some reason we veer off the plan, which, it is a living document, so it's not something that necessarily is going to lay out everything that's going to happen in the next 10 to 15 years. But I think being able to share that with the public is extremely important.
Okay, and you've already talked about some of the things that you've already achieved and already building on. Is there anything new that you'd like to introduce?
So I would like to see an approach where we are integrating our community development and our economic development. Right now, they really operate as two separate programs, and I would love to be, community development leads to the introduction of economic development. So if we have stronger communities, we have stronger neighborhoods, there will be more interest in people wanting to develop within the city. And so I'd like to see us be able to figure out a way to have those not separate or not function separately, but actually be able to prop each other up and magnify their efforts.
Okay. If you had to pick just one issue that you were the most passionate about addressing, what would that be?
Finances, for sure.
Finances. And then considering the variety of needs in the community, because obviously there's so many, how do you plan on maintaining a relationship with your constituents?
Being at events, I think, is an important thing, that there's always something going on in Marietta. Mm-hmm. You hear the people who say there's nothing to do and there's nothing to do for kids, and I understand that a lot has left and that we'd like to have more, but there is something every night of the week, every weekend. So I think being out there, being available for people, to encourage people to come to meetings, to share their thoughts, that I always appreciate when we have people come to council, because, we're not successful in an echo chamber, that we need to hear from the people. So I think that I would love to see us start streaming again, or maybe with the college. You all used to do our council meetings. I'd love to be able to get that out there, because people are busy, and they don't necessarily have the time to make sure they're there during a council meeting. Mm-hmm. So if we can somehow provide them the accessibility when works for their schedule, I think we would have more interaction.
Okay. So how do you approach these challenges in terms of representing all the voices of Marietta?
It is definitely a challenge, because anything you do, there's going to be somebody that's upset, because there's never going to be anything that everybody agrees on. So I think remaining open to hearing all sides is an important thing, not casting judgment until you feel like you have gathered enough thoughts and opinions. And then with the knowledge you have, trying to make the best decision in the moment. I've not always made the best decision, so it's something that you just learn more and do better the next time.
Okay, so now recognizing that there's a variety of interests on the council itself,
mm-hmm.
how do you approach collaborating with others, especially when you disagree on an issue?
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that we function as a team of 7, that there are different interests and there are different abilities and background skill sets brought forward. So I've not had an issue working with people on council in the past, and whoever may be there next term, I don't foresee any problems there. I think everyone has something to offer, and if you discredit someone or their opinion, then you're missing out. I can choose not to agree with it, but if I don't listen to it, then I'm shutting the door to something that they might bring to my attention that I hadn't previously considered.
Yeah. So do you have any thoughts on the process of balancing both the needs of constituents and the interests of the council?
I wouldn't necessarily mean the interest of the council, but the city as a whole. And I mean, there are certainly times that there are people who want us to do things that make sense for them, but maybe doesn't make sense for anyone else. So, and those aspects, trying to really listen to people and provide them, just somebody to talk to air their complaints, and then maybe try to work to a solution. But, there are some times that you have to let them know that's never going to happen. And that's not something that's going to be in the betterment to everyone. But I've really found that people feeling that their voice is heard and matters, that goes a long way. That people should know that they have access to their government and that their government wants to help.
So then just to close, what's one message that you'd like to give the community of Marietta?
One message that I would like to give. I think even in the 6 years that I have been here, council and the administration has started to work really well together, and things are certainly improving. I think we have a lot of work left to do, and I think that there are hard decisions that are going to have to be made to get us to a better place, but we have so much potential in Marietta. I just had family visit from Florida last weekend, and I mean, they live in Tampa and West Palm Beach, so big, exciting places. They love downtown, and so, we don't have this walkability where we are. We don't have, these little dive bars that are unique, and everything's a chain, and they were so pleased with what they were experiencing, and I think we need to figure out a way to share that with more people, because we do have an issue with population decrease, and we have an issue with businesses leaving the city. So trying to figure out what is causing that and seeing what we can do to change that trend in the future, I think is really critical for the city.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate
you for joining us on WCMO TV. This has been Cassidi Shoaf. I'm Addison Painter. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us for this special election program. After the break, we will explore our local and state issues.
For the more than 1 million people living with Parkinson's disease, the Parkinson's Foundation celebrates movement at Moving Day. We move to beat Parkinson's. Move with us at movingdaywalk.org.
Here's to the straggly ones, the lopsided ones, the first ones, the I miss my beard ones. But hey, I look good with this ones. But no way he's grown that in a week ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. That one. The itchy ones. The never forgotten ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The started late ones. The absolutely filthy ones. The drawn on ones. The finger ones. The pin ones. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the yeah, why not ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to the Midnight Snack Run. This is one tricky obstacle course. He's reaching, but he pushes it away. He's approaching a plate of iced cookies. He blows right by him. Oh, the fridge. Looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle. Now he's just got to get out of there. Look what dropped from the sky. Don't do it, Dennis. That's the way you execute a Midnight Snack Run. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Pioneers are explorers. Pioneers are innovators. Pioneers are leaders. We are Marietta College. We are pioneers. Find out how you can become a PIO at www.marietta.edu.
Issue 1 proposes an amendment to the Constitution of the State of Ohio regarding abortion and health rights.
This amendment was proposed by initiative petition, meaning it was brought to the Attorney General for review after gathering 1,000 or more signature from registered Ohio voters. This amendment requires a majority yes vote in the November election to pass. Issue 1 is a self-executing amendment, meaning that if it passed in the November election, there are no further steps before it is put into effect. If passed, it would be placed under Article 1 of the state constitution as Section 22. If passed, Issue 1 would establish individual rights over one's own reproductive medical treatment as a right protected by the Constitution of the state of Ohio. It would also create legal protections for anyone who assists an individual with receiving reproductive medical treatment. In both of these cases, reproductive medical treatment is specified as including but not limited to abortion.
If passed, Issue 1 would prohibit the state of Ohio from in any way preventing an abortion that would occur before the fetus is viable. Issue 1 would further grant the authority to determine a fetus viability solely to the pregnant woman's physician to be decided on a case-by-case basis. The state would not be able to directly or indirectly burden, penalize, or prohibit these abortions without demonstrating the use of at least restrictive means. This sets a high bar for the state to be able to prohibit abortions prior to the viability of the fetus. Issue 1 specifies that the state will only have the grounds to prohibit an abortion after the fetus has been determined viable if the pregnant woman's physician does not consider the abortion necessary for the protection of her life or health. If passed, Issue 1 will guarantee the right to an abortion at any stage of pregnancy, regardless of the fetus's viability. If the treating physician has determined the procedure to be necessary for the protection of the pregnant woman's life or health.
To summarize, a yes vote on Issue 1 is supporting the protection of individuals' rights to their reproductive health decisions. Pregnant women would have the right to an abortion before the fetus is determined viable by their physician. After the fetus is determined viable, abortions would only be permissible in cases where a physician determines that the pregnancy puts a health or safety on the pregnant woman at risk. The state would not be allowed to prevent abortions which are performed to protect the health or safety of the pregnant woman.
A no vote creates no changes in the current reproductive health policies of Ohio. If passed, Issue 1 would be enacted 30 days after the November election as Section 22 of Article 1 of the Constitution of the State of Ohio. If not passed, there will be no change to current policies.
Issue 2 proposes a new state law regarding the legalization of cannabis in Ohio. This law was proposed by the initiative petition, meaning it was brought into an Attorney General for review after gathering 1,000 or more signatures from registered Ohio voters. This law requires a majority yes vote in the November election to pass. If passed, it would be placed under the Ohio Revised Code as Chapter 3780.
If passed, Issue 2 would define adults use cannabis in accordance with current legal definitions of marijuana. Issue 2 would legalize and regulate cannabis for adults 21 years of age and older. This includes the cultivation, processing, sale, purchase, possession, home growth, and use of cannabis.
It would also establish the Division of Cannabis Control within the Department of Commerce. The Division of Cannabis Control would be responsible for regulating, investigating, and penalizing the operators, testing laboratories, and licensed individuals in relation to adult use of cannabis. Additional protection would be created for individuals who partake in these permitted forms of adult cannabis use. Issue 2 would also establish a cannabis social equity and jobs programs, which requires program applicants to be approved by the Department of Development based on social and economic disadvantage.
The Division of Cannabis Control would be required to provide preferential treatment to approved applicants from the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Program when licensing cultivators and dispensaries. The Division of Cannabis Control would also be required to protect any confidential information which could potentially identify any adult cannabis user to the public.
If passed, Issue 2 would prohibit local county or city governments from limiting specific research or levying any tax or charge on adult cannabis businesses that is not charged on any other business. Local county or city government would also be prohibited from prohibiting or limiting any form of adult cannabis use that is authorized by this law. However, landlords and employers would be authorized to prohibit adult cannabis use under specific circumstances. Issue 2 also specifies that adult use of cannabis, both drivers and passengers, would be prohibited while operating a motor vehicle.
If passed, Issue 2 would limit criminal liability for financial institutions that provide services for lawfully operating adult cannabis business or licensed laboratory. Issue 2 would also require the Division of Cannabis Control to work with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services to establish a cannabis addiction program.
If passed, Issue 2 would place a 10% sales tax on all adult use cannabis sales by dispensaries, on top of all existing sales taxes. The funds collected by this tax would be distributed across 5 funds, which would be created in the state treasury by the passing of Issue 2. 36% of the tax collected would go to the Cannabis Social Equity and Jobs Fund. 36% would go to the Host Community Cannabis Facilities Fund. 25% would go to the Substance Abuse and Addiction Fund, and the remaining 3% would go to the Division of Cannabis Control and Tax Commission Fund. In summary, a yes vote on Issue 2 supports the legalization of cannabis use for adults aged 21 and older and establishes the Division of Cannabis Control to oversee the regulation and taxing of cannabis use and cannabis industry operations. A no vote creates no change to the current policies on cannabis use in the state of Ohio. If passed, Issue 2 would be enacted 30 days after the November election as Chapter 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code.
The proposed tax levy is a renewal of an ongoing property tax in Washington County. A majority affirmative vote for the tax levy in the November election is required for it to pass. The proposed tax levy seeks to renew an existing 5-year property tax in Washington County, which is set to expire this year. The funds from this property tax go to the Washington County Children's Services and are used explicitly for foster care placement services. This tax is estimated to collect $895,000 for foster care services each year. The renewal of this tax levy will not increase current property taxes. If renewed, the tax levy will continue to collect 0.55 mils per $1 of property's taxable value. This means that property owners are currently paying $19 annually for every $100,000 of their property's value. The proposed renewal would extend this tax for another 5 years, meaning property owners would continue to pay this $19 per $100,000 in property value for the next 5 years. If the levy is not renewed, property owners would no longer pay this tax, and property taxes will decrease by $19 per $100,000. A yes vote supports the renewal of this tax levy for another 5 years and would continue current property tax rates. A no vote supports the immediate removal of this tax and would decrease current property tax rates. If passed, the renewal or removal of this tax will commence in 2023 and will affect tax collection in the 2024 calendar year, meaning it will impact property taxes in the upcoming tax season.
Thanks for staying with us for this special WCMO News Center 15 Meet the Candidates program. Make sure to cast your vote and join us here for the live election night programming.
Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, lived a young maiden, a sad young lad, and a childless maiden.
Ernie Johnson and Charles Barkley welcoming you back to Susan's Cubicle here in Accounts Payable. What an afternoon of non-stop bookkeeping action, Charles.
All that work, just terrible for her posture and circulation.
Just get moving. It helps in the prevention of so many cancers. Are you kidding me? She set herself a reminder to get out of that chair and move.
That's a smart use of a timeout.
She's somehow still reading her emails while getting her heart rate up and moving her muscles. Healthy habits that could lower your risk of cancer.
Uh-oh, it's Karen from the IT department.
This is a wrinkle no one saw coming. She means well, but she just derailed the yoga class down in accounts receivable.
There she goes with one of her usual distractions.
But Susan tosses her a no-look wave.
That's a crazy move.
Let's watch it again. There's the effortless side wave.
Susan's putting on a clinic.
Susan from Accounts Payable, dominating.
Stand Up to Cancer and Optum want to help you reduce your risk for cancer. Visit takeahealthystand.org.
Being isolated and lonely can be harmful to your health, resulting in high blood pressure, a greater risk of heart disease, and early onset dementia. So it's important to build and maintain social connections. Try a new hobby, volunteer, exercise, or use your phone or other device to stay in touch. Visit connecttoeffect.org to find resources and ways to stay connected. This message is brought to you by United Healthcare and AARP Foundation.